ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। शृण्वतां स्वकता कृष्णः पुण्यश्रवणकीर्तना हृद्यन्तस्तो ह्यभद्राणि विदुनोति सुहृत्सताम्. Krishna, who purifies by the processes of hearing and chanting, who is the benefactor of the devotees who hear about him, enters the hearts of the devotees and destroys their sins. यस्याखिलामीव हभिः सुमङ्गलैः वाचो विमिश्रा गुणकर्म जन्मभिः प्राणन्ति शुम्भन्ति पुनन्ति वै जगत् यास्तद्विरक्ता शवशोभनामताः. All sins are destroyed and all good fortune is created by the Supreme Lord's qualities, activities and appearances, and words that describe these three things animate, beautify and purify the world. On the other hand, words bereft of his glories are like the decorations on a corpse. शृण्वतां गृणतां वीर्यान् युद्धामानि हरेर्मुहुः यथा सुजातया भक्त्या शुद्धेन्यात्मव्रतादिभिः. One who constantly hears and chants about the activities of the Lord, which can destroy sin, purifies his soul by that bhakti. One cannot achieve such purification merely by observing vows and performing Vedic ritualistic ceremonies. शृण्वन्ति घायन्ति गृह्णन्त्यभीक्षणसः स्वरन्ति नन्दन्ति तवेहितं जनाः त एव पश्यन्त्यचिरेण तावकं भवप्रवाहो परमं पदाम्बुजम्. Persons who constantly hear, sing, speak, remember and sing to others about your activities, they alone, without delay, are able to see your lotus feet which destroy the influence of material existence. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna.
Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Rajagacharya, Siswat AC, Bhaktivedanta Swami Śūdra Prabhupada ki jai, Namachar Haridas Thakur ki jai, Prem Sagaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar, Sri Gaur Bhaktivinoda ki jai, Sri Radha Krishna, Gova Govida Shama Kunda Radha Kunda, Giri Govardhan ki jai, Sri Vrindavan Dham ki jai, Navadvip Dham ki jai, Gang Shamona Tulasi Bhakti Devi ki jai, Ananda Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai, Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Go Premanandi, All glories to the Son of the devotees, all glories to the Son of the devotees, all glories to the Son of the devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Guranga, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Prachadane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarane Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 11, Chapter 3, Verse 5. Guṇa guṇansa bunjana Atma prapdotitai prabhu Manyamana idam shrishtam Atmanam iha sajjate. Guṇai, with the modes, guṇan, modes, sa, he, bunjana, enjoying, atma, of the Supreme Soul, prajotitai, enlivened, Prabhu, the Master, manyamana, thinking, idam, this, shrishtam, created body, atmanam, as his own self. Iha, in this, sajjate, he becomes entangled. Translation: the individual living being, the master of the material body, uses his material senses, which have been activated by the supersoul, to try to enjoy sense objects composed of the three modes of nature. Thus, he misidentifies the created material body with the unborn, eternal self, and becomes entangled in the illusory energy of the Lord. Purport: in this verse, the living entity is called Prabhu, or Master, because he is a minute part and parcel of the Supreme Master, Krishna. Similarly, in Bhagavad Gita, the Lord has described the living entity as Ishvara, the controller. Sariram yadavapnoti yatchap ukramatishvara grihit vaitani sangyati vayur gundan ivasayat. The living entity in the material world carries his various conceptions of life from one body to another, as the air carries aromas. Srila Prabhupada has commented in his purport. Here, the living entity is described as Ishvara, the controller of his own body. If he likes, he can change his body to a higher grade, and if he likes, he can move to a lower class. Minute independence is there. The change his body undergoes depends upon him. This statement confirms the words Swamatra and Atma Prasiddhaye, in text 3 of this chapter. And if the Supreme Lord were to interfere with the minute independence of the living entity, there would be no question of the living entities engaging in the loving service of the Lord, since love implies a spontaneous free choice by the lover. Here, the word Prabhu indicates that just as a child, having received a toy car from his father, pedals on the sidewalk, imitating the father who drives an actual car, the living entity pedals around the material universe in the innumerable material bodies selected for him by the Supreme Lord from the assortment of 8,400,000 species. Thus, the living entity, infatuated with the false ego of the material body, creates a fearful situation in which he undergoes repeated birth and death, as described in the statement by him, Dividya Abhinivesha Ta Syat. Srila Jiva Goswami has given another explanation for this verse. If the word Prabhu is taken to mean the Supreme Lord, the word guṇai can be understood to mean good qualities, since guṇa can refer to the material modes of nature or admirable qualities. This verse would then mean that the Lord, by his transcendental qualities, such as mercy, is able to relish the transcendental qualities of his pure devotees. Atma prajotitai would then indicate that by surrendering unto the Lord, who is the reservoir of all good qualities, the pure devotees become similarly endowed with godly qualities. The words manyamana idam shrishtam atmanam would indicate that the Lord accepts the body of his pure devotee to be on the same spiritual level as he himself, as indicated in the verse acharya mam vijaniyam navamaneta karhichit. The Lord is attracted by the loving devotional service of his pure devotees and thus becomes entangled in the network of their loving relationship with him. For example, after the battle of Kurukshetra, when Krishna was leaving for his own city, Dwarka, the loving appeal of Maharaj Yudhisthira forced the Lord to remain for several more weeks in Hastinapur. Similarly, when the elderly gopis of Vrindavan clapped their hands, Krishna would dance like a puppet, keeping time to their rhythm. In relation to this subject matter, Srila Jiva Goswami has quoted a verse from Srimad Bhagavatam, Sadhavo hridayam mahyam sadhunam hridayam faham maranya tena jananti naham tebyo managapi. The pure devotee is always within the core of my heart, and I am always in the heart of the pure devotee. My devotees do not know anything but me, and I do not know anyone but them. According to Srila Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur, the word Prabhu may also be understood as follows. The word pra indicates prakarshena, or excessively, and bhu means bhavati, or taking birth. Thus, Prabhu indicates prakarshena deva tirig adishu bhavati iti sa, or repeatedly taking birth among the demigods, animals, human beings, and other forms of life. Confirming the statement by Srila Jiva Goswami concerning the Lord's attachment to the spiritualized body of a pure devotee, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur has quoted the following verses from Chaitanya Charitamrita. Diksha kale bhakta kore atma samarpana, se kale krishna tare kore atma sama. At the time of initiation, when a devotee fully surrenders unto the service of the Lord, Krishna accepts him to be as good as himself. Se deha kore tar chid anandamoy aprakrita dehe tara chadana bhajai. When the devotee's body is thus transformed into spiritual existence, the devotee in that transcendental body renders service to the lotus feet of the Lord. Translation: the individual living being, the master of the material body, uses his material senses, which have been activated by the supersoul, to try to enjoy sense objects composed of the three modes of material nature. Thus, he misidentifies the created material body with the unborn eternal self and becomes entangled in the illusory energy of the Lord. So, the topic here was all about Maya and how Maya attracts the living entities. So this is an explanation of how this entanglement takes place. The jiva becomes attracted to the material modes of nature and uses his senses to enjoy them. And then he begins to identify with the material body and think, this is myself. And he becomes completely absorbed in that material body. So this is, of course, well known. We have many descriptions of this illusion that takes place by which the jiva misidentifies himself. And instead of understanding he is atma, he thinks he is body. The sense of I does not disappear. So even in the spiritual world, the jiva has a sense of I. Okay? So the problem in the material world is the jiva has the sense of I, but he doesn't identify it with the atma, he identifies it with the body. So the mechanism by which this takes place is called ahankara. That's the false ego, what we call the false ego. Of course, the same word is used in the spiritual world. The jiva has ahankara, or he has ego, because he understands I am the servant of the Lord. But in the material world, that ahankara takes a different form, and he thinks I am this material body, and therefore we call false ego or false ahankara or whatever, false identity. So there's nothing wrong with the sense of I and mine, but in the material world it is mistaken. So the first mistake is to identify with the material body, so the I is completely mistaken. And then the mama, the possessiveness of objects, is also misplaced because we're thinking in terms of body. However, the mama also has a problem even if it's attached to the soul, because if the soul thinks in terms of this is mine, again, it doesn't work. The only way the jiva can think of mine is this is mine in the service of the Lord. He cannot think of it as mine for my enjoyment. So in the material world, the mind is attached to this idea of enjoying, and the enjoying is attached to the material body. So the attachment is there because we're attached to the material body and think that I'll get enjoyment for this body, which we think is I, the self. So this is the nature of illusion in the material world. It is called maya, that which does not actually exist. It is an error. It is a mistake. But within this mistake, the jiva is trapped. And it's very difficult for him to get out of this big mistake. So that is why the jiva continues birth after birth with this false ego in the material world. So why he cannot escape is not so much the mechanism of maya, but the attachment of the jiva to his sense of enjoyment. If he gives up that enjoyment, it is not difficult to get rid of the maya. But if he has that sense of enjoyment, he's very attached to body, to senses, to material objects, etc. And he will never let go of it. So the problem with maya is not maya, it's the jiva. The jiva simply desires to enjoy. So sometimes people will ask, well, why is it that the Lord keeps us in the material world so long? So the answer is, the Lord does not want to keep us in the material world so long. He gives plenty of opportunities for each jiva to advance out of the material world. He makes an arrangement of varnashram so you can get detached in sattva guṇa. He gives you scriptures by which you can do karma yoga, jnana yoga, stanga yoga, or bhakti yoga to get out. He supplies devotees to give the teachings of the scripture. He comes as the avatar. He has the process of bhakti to make it very easy. So the Lord provides means for the jiva to end the endless or the beginningless cycle of birth and death in the material world. But in spite of that, most jivas do not take up that opportunity. Why? Because they want to stay in the material world. This is the problem. They have a very strong attachment to enjoying in the material world. And they're, you can say, stubbornly attached to it. So that each lifetime, the jiva more or less repeats the same activities as the previous lifetime to get his enjoyment. Slight modification every life, but more or less the same. Why it repeats the same thing? Because very stubborn. He thinks somehow I can still succeed this time. It's just like in some people are so stubborn that they gamble and they lose all their money, but still they gamble again and they say, maybe I'll win this time, and they lose it again. Then they'll go back and they'll try to say, oh, maybe I'll win next time, and they put all the money in and they lose again. So the jiva is like that, very, very stubborn, and in spite of the fact of getting all sorts of problems, he continues the same process again and again. Think maybe this time we'll succeed and get our happiness out of the material world. So the Lord has made an arrangement so that actually the jiva can be happy, and actually it's the nature of the jiva to have happiness. So that's why we say Satchidananda. The jiva's nature is Satchidananda. But then the immediate question is, well, if he's Ananda now, why isn't he blissful? Why do we have to suffer in the material world? So the idea is the nature of the jiva is to experience that enjoyment. However, because of the jiva's attachment to his own enjoyment in this material world, he gets an abhas of real happiness in the material world. Why is that like that? Because it's actually not his nature. His svabhav is not like that. So what is his svabhav? Nitya Krishna Das. So when he accepts that nature, then he can get his enjoyment. He can get his experience of happiness. So it is not that the Lord deliberately arranges for suffering of the jiva. The jiva creates his own suffering by his own choice. So it is mentioned here in the verse how the jiva has his minute free will, or his choice. And so he can choose Krishna, or he can choose his own enjoyment in this material world. So the jivas that are here birth after birth are choosing to get their own enjoyment. So therefore they end up with the body and the false identity and all these attempts. And they also get karma. But the jiva is not forced to choose one way or the other. That is the meaning of his freedom of choice, his minute independence. So the Lord gives the jiva the opportunity to choose one or the other, Krishna or no Krishna, either one. In fact, he also allows a more liberal choice even. I don't like Krishna, but I like another form of the Lord. You can have another form of the Lord also. And if you don't want any form of the Lord also, you can choose Brahman. He allows that choice. And you can end your suffering that way also. But if you don't want any of those, then you have to choose material world. And then within the material world, he also gives you choice. But it does not look like choice in many cases, because we have limitations. So that's why we say he has minute independence. He doesn't have complete independence. So we can choose, but it is not always we can choose anything we want and get it. It's within limitation. So the limitation for the jivas in the material world is created by their material bodies. Their material bodies are created according to the law of karma. So ultimately the law of karma limits the free will of the jiva in the material world. However, the jiva can also use his free will within the law of karma to improve his situation. He hasn't got complete freedom, not unlimited free will or choice, but he has some minute freedom of choice within the material world. So within his particular karma, he also has choice. So there's never a situation for the human being not to have that freedom of choice. If he's not a human being, of course, it is somewhat different. the choice is very limited. And when we get to plants, not much choice at all. They can't even move around. They simply accept what's there, more or less. As we go up in the species, there's a little more choice, a little more choice, a little more choice. We get to the human being, that's where the free will can operate nicely. And therefore, that's also where the law of karma operates. It does not operate. The plants and the animals do not get karma for their actions, but the human being does, because he has that freedom of choice. And if he makes the wrong choice, then he gets bad karma. Makes a good choice, then he gets good karma. Yeah? So that type of result is not there for the plants and animals, but for the human being. Yeah? Yeah? So therefore, that free will is not really manifest so much in the lower species of life, but it is a manifest for the human being. However, even in the human being, the free will does not manifest so nicely for the lower gunas. So in tamo guna, again, the free will is very limited because the person is ignorant, and his choices are all ignorant choices. How can he make intelligent choices if he's in the mode of ignorance? Because his nature is ignorance, foolishness. So he makes foolish choices all the time. Of course, we know that the gunas are mixed, so once in a while that foolish jiva in tamo guna may make a good choice, and then he gets some good result also. So with the human being also, we have various amounts of, let's say, freedom of choice. So the maximum free choice is with the sattva guna jivas. They have vidya, knowledge, they have a detachment from material enjoyment, etc. They accept scriptures, so the opportunity for knowledge is much more than opportunity of choice is much more. Therefore, we could criticize the Lord. Okay, well, why you put the gunas there so that some human beings are less equal than others? Tamoguna jivas are not equal to the sattva guna jivas. That's true in one sense. But that's the nature of the material world. The gunas are inbuilt, and they're in all species of life. But to modify that situation of the lower gunas being more helpless, the Lord gives varnashram system. So that we have rules that everybody follows, and the rules for the people in tamagun are not the same as the rules in sattvagun, because they have less ability to follow the same sense control, etc. So they have a different set of rules, and they don't have to make choices in tamagun, because the śūdra doesn't get that opportunity. He's not given money. So again, by limiting his choices, he doesn't make bad choices. That's what happens in tamagun for the śūdra. So because of that, then no bad choices, less sinful activity because no choice, then he advances by that gradually. So the gunas can change gradually, and one can elevate through the gunas by more and more restrictions. So that is the benefit of the varnashram system. It can raise one through the gunas. Unfortunately, it takes a long time to do that, going from body to body to body to body. So it takes many lifetimes to elevate through the gunas through that system, but nevertheless it takes place. So that is one system the Lord has there to give some advantage for all people within the gunas to advance by having a system of laws for the particular jivas in different situations. So again, the Lord is not indifferent to the situation of the jivas. He makes arrangements for them in that way. And then the Lord mercifully gives the process of bhakti, so that equally all the human beings in any guṇa can take to that process. Not so with jnana. Only sattvagun people can take advantage of that. So no opportunity of liberation for tamagun and rajagun jivas, human beings. But for people, for bhakti, it's available to all people in all gunas. So he gives a very merciful process for everyone to follow. And not only they can get liberation from the material world, they can get higher. They can get up to realization of Bhagavan and attain prema. So this is an arrangement of the Supreme Lord for all of the human beings. But it depends on their choice, the free will. They have to choose it or not choose it. So who chooses? Those people with faith. And where does the faith come from? The faith, again, is not dependent on the gunas. Faith is dependent upon bhakti, again, mercy of devotees, that's all. So it's all beyond the gunas. So once one gets the faith, then one chooses to practice bhakti. So that's good fortune for the jiva when he makes that choice. The matter of no choice, of course, is the mercy. So before having faith, the jiva has no ability to choose bhakti. He has no interest in it. So the only chance is accidental exposure to bhakti. So that influence gradually develops so that the person will choose bhakti. That is when he has faith. He chooses, I will take to the process of bhakti. So this is again arrangement of the Lord. Devotees in the material world to give opportunities to the jiva to develop faith. And then they can get out of this situation described in this verse where one identifies fully with the material body. So when we accept the process of bhakti, that is faith, then we accept that I am not the enjoyer. That's inherent in the whole process of bhakti. I am the servant of the Lord. So automatically the whole process is headed in a different direction from the material world and is covering with ignorance. So one develops that faith. That is the cornerstone for practicing bhakti and transcending material body, the gunas, etc., and ahankara. So that is the easy process of conquering over Maya in the material world through the process of bhakti. The original question was here in relation to Maya because we do have to understand the influence of Maya on the jiva. Once we've understood that the jivas in the material world are influenced by Maya, then we have to separate the jiva from that Maya, that illusion that was described here, the false identity, etc. So it is the process of bhakti that will do that most effectively. So that much knowledge we have to know of Maya. We may not know all the details of how Maya works and all the intricate laws of karma and all the material elements, etc. But when we understand its influence on its unfavorable influence on the jiva, then fine. Then we can begin the process of bhakti and negate this influence completely.
And as such, are the laws of karma much more stringent for them than for the human beings what they have?
For the well, they're all sattvic, we can say, so they'll follow basically the same laws of karma.
And in the Kali Yuga, we see that though people are in ignorance, they claim that they have to make their own choices. Like nobody accepts that they are śūdra. They think that they are better qualified than anybody else to make decisions.
Yeah.
But this leads to much more graver situation for them.
Yeah, the democracy gives everybody, all the ignorant people, ability to choose the wrong person as their leader, because they can get really fooled easy.
That means the entire population is being misled, and we are going into misery rather than coming out of the misery.
Yeah, so that's the problem with democracy. That's why Prabhupada criticizes it. On the other hand, the problem with the opposite, that is monarchy, is that the leader can exploit everybody else and nobody has any choice to do anything. So that is the reason why democracy prevailed. In France, they had all the kings and the people were suffering, and they're supposed to be kshatriyas and take care of the citizens. Instead of protecting them, they exploited them and let them starve to death. So when it became so extreme, they all revolted and they just chopped off the heads of all the leaders and aristocracy or whatever. We don't want these people anymore.
And then the people began to rule because of the exploitation. So this is let's say, the Kali Yuga. Varnashram fails because the kings are not qualified. So therefore, the replacement is let the people rule instead. So maybe it's not the best solution, but maybe it's better than having the autocrat up there ruling everybody and just mistreating everybody also.
Sattvagun, we have more opportunity to get the bhakti and knowledge. In Tamogun, we don't have knowledge, but bhakti is not dependent on gunas.
Yeah.
Then how the
Yeah, so in Sattva Gun, we have the opportunity to accept scripture, definitely, but we may not accept the bhakti scriptures. We may accept the guṇa scriptures or the karma scriptures also. We accept scriptures, definitely, and the general tendency is to accept the guṇa scriptures because guṇa is also in Sattva Gun. And one of the qualities of Sattva Gun is to reveal Atma, but not Bhagavan. So therefore, they get interested in Atma and Brahman in Sattva Gun. So they can get as far as Jnana, but not Bhakti through Sattva Gun.
But who is in favorable for bhakti? Who is in Sattvagun?
Yeah.
He is favorable to Krishna.
He may not be. He may get involved in Jnana and then he may become a Mayavadi. So then that's opposite Bhakti. Or he may become a follower of Jaimini and become a Karmavadi and do yagyas for going to Svargaloka instead. So there's many things he could get into in Sattva Gun also by influence.
Tamogun people also struggling more without knowledge.
Yeah.
Then how the bhakti will operate?
Well, if they get faith and they practice Bhakti, you destroy all your gunas. You go beyond the gunas.
Maharaj, regarding this law of karma operating only for humans, usually we find even animals suffering, like a dog, broken
Well,
leg.
they don't accrue karma. They're still suffering the effects of previous karma. That's why they're in a dog body. But when the dog bites you, he doesn't get karma for that. When the tiger kills the deer, doesn't get any karma for that. You can't say it's cruel, he's killing the deer. No karma. So they don't accrue karma, but they're all suffering the results of previous. They're in those bodies because of karma. So not only the human being has anadi karma, the animals also have anadi karma, and due to their karma in that particular time, they're getting that body.
Yes, Maharaj. Now in this verse, Atma Samarpan, Diksha Kale, that Atma Samarpan, is it Atma Nivedanam or?
It's not clear, it doesn't really explain it. One could say one offers oneself, one offers the body, one offers the mind, one offers the soul. So in other words, become dedicated.
Okay. And what is the difference between Tamogun and Avidya? Because in English we translate both of them as ignorance and
Tamagun.
Tamagun and Avidya.
Well, Tamagun usually refers to the guṇa and its influence. Avidya is just a general term. But then that avidya spreads not only in Tamagun, it's inherent in the whole material world. Yeah? And we can say that everything, all matter is avidya in one sense, from, prakriti, mahatattva, everything in the material world is that avidya. But then we also say that, mahatattva is sattvagun and ahankara is tamagun, like that. So tamagun, usually we connect it with the gunas, some function within the tamagun.
And Maharaj, you many times told that the Paramatma's role is just Upadrishta and Anumanta, witnessing and sanctioning. But we also hear the role of Chaitya Guru. So when does
Then he may be functioning, if he's functioning for bhakti, then he becomes Bhagavan. So it's not necessarily Paramatma then, it is Bhagavan functioning, where in verses where it says, I'm in the heart of my devotee, and my devotees in me, and all this. Sadhava hridayam mahyam. We can say, well, that's Paramatma, but technically it's Bhagavan, because he's establishing an affectionate relationship with the devotee.
So at some point, the Paramatma starts operating as Bhagavan and Chaitya.
Well, they're non-different in one sense.
When does he
That's
start
our
playing
conception. That says make it functionally. We can say we clarify these different functions of Paramatma and Bhagavan. That's only our sampradaya. Also, even Shibra Sampradaya, they don't make any differentiation between Bhagavan and Paramatma in one sense in Sri Sampradaya. So when they say Paramatma, it also refers to Bhagavan. So they don't really, but we distinguish them because the relationship is more intimate with Bhagavan, and we say that's where the bhakti is, and the Paramatma function here is just, supervising our stay in the material body, and in the spiritual world, no Paramatma, it's all Bhagavan.
So can we say that when the jiva comes to the stage of Shraddha, that's when the Paramatma starts?
Bhagavan, we can say Bhagavan is functioning because he's operating in relation to bhakti.
And Maharaj, we understand that all Vaishnavas are gurus because we learn from them. But now within ISKCON, to whom should we apply the term Shiksha Guru?
Well, again, we can have let's say the Vartma Pradarshaka Guru is a Shiksha Guru of sorts, but that's a little more accidental maybe, or casual. And then we have a Shiksha Guru where we learn a lot from a person, so that becomes a more, say, a Shiksha Guru proper, we can say.
Like some devotees who are guiding us.
Yeah, well, in one sense they can all be, but then if we want to take it up to the level of one who's on the level, let's say, of respect that we give a Diksha Guru, then that would be a more special person who's giving formally more teachings or something. Good?
No, you said the kings are not qualified, that's why democracy is prevailing. But if you see the dictatorship, like I can quote example of Hitler, the country economy of German was very, very good, though he was a demonic nature. Like so, how if the democracy is not recommended, if the king monarchy is exploiting, then what type of administration Kali Yuga can exist?
Yeah, so it's difficult because for the Varnashram system to operate properly, then you need the descendant of Manu, because all the kings came in Manu's line, and that descendant of Manu is not visible now. He's hiding in the Himalayas somewhere, and he won't manifest until the next Satya Yuga. So therefore, no matter how much we try to make a Varnashram system, it's not going to work very good because the qualified line of kings isn't there anymore. So we can invent somebody as the leader, but it may not work for very long. It won't last. So very difficult. So that's the problem in Kali Yuga. The whole government system is messed up, and it's very difficult to make an ideal system in Kali Yuga. That's why it's called Kali Yuga.
It's like in the Bhagavatam, like Prahlad Maharaj, like Ambarish Maharaj, they were a devotee, they were ruling the kingdom.
Yeah.
They were acceptable as a great personality, and there was the virtue was there.
Yeah.
But what Prabhupada recommends, according to him, for ruling the Kali Yuga as a governance?
Well, the only good quality in Kali Yuga is chant the holy name. So we have to rely on that. We can try to have a good government, but it may not last that long. We don't know, because the nature of Kali Yuga is complete disturbance or whatever like that. We can do our best, but whatever system, democracy or autocracy or whatever, whatever system is suitable for implementing spiritual ideals, we try to follow that. That's all.
It's like a Kali Yuga, when progressing, we are dealing with the demoniac leaders in the country, the states.
Yeah.
So it does not disturb the progress of the religion.
Yeah, obviously. Yeah. But in spite of that, one still survives. One can still survive in spite of that. And even if it's unfavorable, still somehow the person can practice. If we have more favorable government, very good. So if through democracy we get someone who is a devotee as the leader, fine, that's also good. But again, it's unstable. Then we get voted out of power next time, so it's difficult, especially if they don't supply the people with enough money and finances, then and enjoyment, then they get voted out of power again. So it's a little tricky to, have a good government in Kali Yuga.
Maharaj, you mentioned that unless one gets the mercy of the devotees, he does not get Shraddha, and his devotional life does not get started. Mm-hmm. So you also mentioned that this getting Shraddha and starting devotional service actually independent of the gunas. So is there any karma involved, or is there any purpose of someone getting Shraddha, or bhakti is independent?
No, it's not dependent on karma. because karma is in the gunas. So bhakti is not dependent on karmas. Faith is not dependent on karmas. So faith is dependent on bhakti. That's why if the devotees are merciful, then gradually you develop faith. So the only question is, well, how can the devotee be merciful? So it's his free will to choose to spread mercy. But the person doesn't want it because he has no faith. He's not looking for it. So therefore it's accidental. Somehow or other he meets the person and then he doesn't even preach to him maybe, but simply the meeting is okay. He may take prasadam or whatever. So that is what creates the faith initially.
Pertaining to Gaur Krishna's question, what about the situation in Kali Yuga? Now we see that in ISKCON we are making some efforts by having the education ministry, whereby we are trying to educate even diplomats and others in Krishna consciousness. And how far this is going to be helpful, and how fast we'll be able to achieve the goal of attaining the complete Krishna consciousness?
For who?
For the general public. We see now they're conducting classes for IAS officers, training courses and all from
whatever we can do to educate all sorts of people in government, outside of government, very good. If it works on both levels, in the bureaucracy and in the population, fine. The more we can spread, then the more we can make the whole society Krishna conscious. Depends on the efforts of the devotees.
Maharaj, in the purport it is mentioned that at the time of initiation, when a devotee fully surrenders, what does that fully surrenders at the time of the initiation, Prabhu?
Yeah, so that is Atma Samarpana. So technically when you take Diksha, it says that Sarvasva Nivedya, you should offer everything to the Guru at that time. So that means, and of course, it's not literal in one sense because the only complete surrender is in prema. But nevertheless, we make some attempt to do that at the beginning of our bhakti also. So even the Shraddha has an element of surrender in it. And the first anga of bhakti is also surrender before we can even do hearing and chanting. So it's not complete, of course, but there's some element there of surrender.